Howdy, all. It's nice when there's actually stuff to talk about, and we have a lot of things to discuss. Game 7 of St. Louis and Chicago, some comings and goings, some battles between players and the media. But I have to open with this just because we talked about it at the opening of yesterday's webcast. And I have to apologize to Kevin McGran of the Toronto Star, who we're Facebook friends, and was annoyed at the fact that in the span of 24 hours he got 2 requests for my Candy Crush Saga. Yes, I know.
I'm with Kevin. It's the most annoying thing. I want to say I probably get 20 of those a day, maybe more.
Yeah, well, and I have to explain to Dan. Dan, I was not playing this game for like a year and a half, right? I was stuck on one level and could not get by it. And then all of a sudden I went back for some reason because I think I had like 25 requests for lives or whatever on there, and I just went through all of them just to blank it out. And I said, what the hell? I'll play a game, and I finally got by the level, and now I'm back playing it again. And I got stuck where you have to go from one level to another, and you need friend requests to get you by. And I sent like 2 requests in 24 hours, and I pissed off Kevin, and he went on Twitter and says, 1 more request and you're done on Facebook.
Yeah, I don't play video games a ton. I do enjoy it. Time's always a problem. But last night I spent an hour liberating Madison Square Garden on the Division. So I play that's a little more my speed than Candy Crush. But I wouldn't like that either. I don't have Facebook, but that probably would annoy me as well.
So I liked you better when you didn't play Candy Crush Saga. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Angry Birds, I think I'd be okay with.
Yeah. Moving on from that.
Anything that doesn't send a message. I just don't want the stinking message.
Yeah, I remember back in the day they used to have that Farmville and used to.
Farmville! I wanted to strangle people.
They all send messages though. I think they all
to burn down their farm. I would.
Scorch the earth.
Great. I'm not going to make any German army references. Okay.
Too soon.
Yes. Okay. The winner for the Jonathan Papelbon Award has to go to the Detroit Tigers outfielder Tyler Collins, who I honestly, I am pretty aware of baseball and of most players in baseball. I didn't know who the hell Tyler Collins was. I looked him up. He's pretty much a 4th, 5th outfielder, journeyman type of guy. And playing center field last night, lost the ball in the lights. Detroit was up 6-0 at the time, and the fans at Comerica lustily booed Collins. And he lustily waved the middle finger and flipped off 25,000 or whatever, how many fans were at the park. And I don't know if they pulled him out of the game or if it was at the end of the inning, but he had a talking to from Brad Ausmus, his manager. Russ, I don't remember specific incidents. I remember a few incidents in hockey where, not recently, but going back a few years to the 70s and the 80s, where there were arm gestures and finger gestures at the crowd. Do you remember any?
Yeah, there definitely were some at the Garden. I can't remember what particular players, but it's been so fleeting, I would say, in the last 10, 15 years. I think the reason that you'll see more of that in Major League Baseball than you will in hockey is because Major League Baseball now gets a ton of corporate money. And a lot of these teams don't even rely on their gate like they used to. Like the NHL relies on their gate heavily, and I think owners basically let players know that people are paying your salaries. Right. In baseball now, that's not necessarily the case anymore, that fans are paying their salaries. And because of that, I think there's a disconnect with some players and fans. Not all of them, but you do get these occasional idiots that think, hey, it's okay to do this to the fans when it's not.
And that's go ahead, Dan.
Well, yeah, if you look at like the Arizona Diamondbacks, the deal that they got with their new local television deal, the deal in Arizona, was the reason they were able to go out and get a Zach Greinke. That was the reason they were able to spend money. But I mean, look, it happens in the NHL. It just happened in the last round. Andrew Shaw flipped off the officials in front of 20,000 people. So.
Well, yeah, flipped off.
Is this guy going to get suspended?
I don't know.
Probably, maybe by the team.
I would say it gets fined.
Yeah, maybe by the team. I don't know about MLB, but yeah, I mean, and I didn't want to go down the Shaw thing because really it was the wording that he used than it was the actual gesture.
Still, you can't flip off referees. I didn't like that.
I'm not defending Shaw. I mean, and it would be one thing if it was against another player. I mean, please, if I was in between two penalty boxes after a fight or something like that, and those guys are going back and forth. I would go deaf based on the number of swear words that were going on. So that's expected, but directed towards the crowd is what I was a little surprised.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen anything like that in a while. I think you're right, Mike. I think it happened in Madison Square Garden a few times in the 70s.
And Russ, you are right in the sense that, especially now at this time of year, I mean, April, when it's still cold outside, and you look at Yankee Stadium for a series against Oakland or Tampa Bay, and there's 20,000 people, whereas in June and July there'll be 55,000.
Nah, maybe not.
No,
not even 55 anymore.
No, maybe 35. The Yankees' attendance is in the crapper because they're such a boring and unattractive team.
Point. I mean, stands are emptier now than they used to be, even at this time of the year. I mean, the Mets are given a 57% discount based on Syndergaard's last game.
Well, no, it's like opening day tickets to the Mets were like $100. The cheapest seat I saw in Step Up was $100. The second game, like the second home game of the season, there were tickets for $8.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, Blue Jays tickets are selling right now, but that'll change in July when they're behind Tampa.
And I do have to let you know, I'm wearing this shirt simply because they are one of the worst drafting teams of all time, and I want to wear it today because on Thursday I'll probably burn it. So I'm just letting you know that now.
No, you won't. You can't help yourself.
Oh no, I don't put it past him, Dan. When after one of the Super Bowl losses, I took a Bills jersey out in the street in Buffalo and burned it right in the middle of the street.
I'm wearing my shirt from the movie The Sandlot.
Oh, that's a great one. I love that.
Yep.
All right, let's get the show started, shall we? Let's see. Here we go.
Okay.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Tuesday, April 26th, 2016. I'm
Dan Petru.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Eklund will be back tomorrow to brag about how the St. Louis Blues defeated the Chicago Blackhawks 3-2 and advanced to the second round of the NHL playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs. Russ, just give me your initial thoughts because, first of all, I give all the credit to the Blues, but I still think that they're a flawed team, and I think it was more the flaws of the Blackhawks that made St. Louis able to win this series than it was the Blues overcoming the Hawks.
I don't want to say that's the only reason, but that's definitely a reason. You know, I thought, like, Alex Pietrangelo had an amazing series, right? Like, he just played great. They had some players that played great, but the Hawks, they definitely were showing some of their age. They definitely have been hurt on depth because of the salary cap. And so some of those things came into play. You know, those first couple of goals, there's nothing Crawford can do, and that just started things off on a bad path for them. So, you know, you put all those things together. I still don't like the Hitch Tarasenko stuff. They showed it, and it doesn't look good. It really doesn't. And again, he still didn't play the full amount of ice time. Like, Hitch isn't going to budge on this. And I don't know if you can continue on with that and continue on making it into the playoffs, deep into the playoffs, when your best player is certainly bothered. So it was a great win. They did what they finally had to do. I have to give them credit for it. Next round, I don't know, but I think Chicago has some real work to do now, though, like 2 years ago, like real work. Otherwise, they're going to slip a little bit.
Well, let's talk about the game first, and then we'll talk about the Hawks. Dan, I mean, Russ is right. They fell down 2-0, came back, showed the character that we expect from the Hawks. The one thing that you look at in retrospect of the series, Patrick Kane's one goal was the Game 5 double overtime winner. Jonathan Toews did not score at all. He had assists. He didn't have goals. I think they were still, really good players, and I think they still are really good players, and I thought they played well in the series, but with the lack of depth in other areas that club has, they needed those guys to step up, and they really didn't in this series.
Well, I think what it boils down to is this Chicago team has some flaws, unlike, there are a few wrinkles there, unlike some of the past Chicago teams. This one definitely had some clear flaws, and so when you have those flaws, when you're not perfectly constructed like they have been in past years, you need your best players to be amazing. You need your best players to carry the team. And while Toews and Kane weren't horrible, they weren't the best players on the ice night in and night out. And in a tight series against a team like the Blues, who exercise their demons, but they're not a perfect team either. Their best players were outstanding, and the Hawks' best players were just good. And just good, unfortunately, when your flawed team isn't good enough.
I thought Hossa was fantastic last
He was, and that's encouraging to see because he had such an up and down year.
But this is the thing that puzzles me, and I'm far be it from me to criticize Joel Quenneville. The guy's got 3 Stanley Cups, so he can't do much wrong. But this is more in Stan Bowman's bailiwick than it is Quenneville's. How in God's name are you putting David Rundblad on the pairing with Duncan Keith?
That makes no sense.
That was the first thing I texted you last night. Of course he was going to be there for the first goal. He's awful. I don't want to say he's a terrible defenseman because there's definitely a role for him, but I can't put him out there in important times. That's my point.
No,
I'm not convinced he's a regular NHL defenseman. Maybe like a 7 or an 8. I am not convinced he's a regular NHL defenseman, and certainly not meriting top line minutes in the Game 7 of a playoff game. That's outrageous.
Well, this is the methodology that like Randy Carlyle used in Toronto when he put Dion Phaneuf with Carbinian Holzer or Mike Costner.
Oh yeah, I love Carbinian Holzer.
You put your best defenseman with your worst to cover up the guy who's your worst. But I mean,
Arbor used to do that with Potvin a lot.
What I don't understand is what the hell he's doing in the lineup in the first place. You had guys. I mean, okay, Jay Harrison is not doesn't have great NHL speed anymore. Maybe Christian Ehrhoff has seen better days. But
yeah.
I think Jay Harrison or Christian Ehrhoff would have been a more understandable choice in a Game 7 than David Rundblad, who proved last year he couldn't play in the playoffs.
Russ, what about Ville Poca? We've heard a lot about him when he was acquired for Leddy, and I know he had a really good first season in the AHL, but you would think he'd be close to being ready, right?
I think he's close. I think they're probably just worried about him meshing with those guys last minute. But I think next year they're going to lean on him for sure. I think Poca is going to make it in the NHL. The other thing was not playing Teravainen. I didn't get that. I get when coaches want to play someone bigger rather than someone smaller. But Teravainen also plays great defense, and he has done a fair amount of scoring for them in the playoffs. Like that to me, that puzzled me that he wasn't in the lineup.
I feel like his growth was stunted this year.
He was in the lineup. He played last night.
Oh, he did? I thought he didn't. I didn't notice him. Okay. I had to sound off for a little while.
But he wasn't noticeable. You're right. And his offensive numbers this year were down as compared to last year when they won the Cup. I think he had 10 points in the postseason last year. Didn't score as much. And I mean, maybe the concern. I think they elevated a guy like Kruger. They had Kruger playing with Hossa and with Ladd, and they had Teravainen.
For the defense, for his defense and face-offs, I guess. Well, he's not taking decent defensive face-offs for Kruger. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think Andrew Ladd Part 2 worked out either. I don't think this time around he was I don't think he was the impact they were hoping for at the deadline.
Well, and that's what I sort of want to go where I want to go here in terms of looking at the Hawks, because we'll talk about the Blues and the Stars when that series starts. But looking at the Hawks, I mean, in goal, Crawford's in his prime. I think he's an above average NHL goaltender. He fits with that franchise, so I think they're okay there. On defense, I mean, Gustafsson, he was part of that. He had played a role in the final goal, the Brouwer goal. I mean, he may be a 5'6", but you can't have Rundblad out there. I mean, they need probably 2 NHL defensemen. They probably need somebody who can play on the top forward who could replace Johnny Oduya instead of Trevor Van Riemsdyk. I mean, Trevor Van Riemsdyk would be great as a 5'6", but as a top 4 I don't know. And I think they need one more defenseman as a depth guy. So I think that's where the concentration of Stan Bowman's summer moves is going to be. Russ, do you think so?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they could use Poca in a bottom role, but I don't think he's got enough experience yet. And what's funny is they had to trade Stephen Johns, right? And Stephen Johns would look really good on the team next year. But that's what you have to do sometimes to get a guy. And so they're going to have to acquire at least one guy. I looked at Teravainen's time; he had 11 minutes, but he didn't do anything. Right. So I guess that's why I didn't notice him. I think there's not a lot of defensemen to get out there, and I think this has been the Blackhawks' problem the last couple of years, is that free agent defenseman market dries up very quickly. And Are they going to be able to spend Keith Yandel money? No.
No.
And so then who do you really get? Are you going to get Medvedev on a one-year deal? Are you going to, I'm just saying that, what are you really looking at?
I think the problem is there's really not much out there. They don't really have the draft picks to trade for somebody, and they can't afford anybody.
They have Ryan Hartman. He would bring something.
They do, but they don't. I mean, they've traded a lot of. Do they have a first rounder this year?
No, they
did not. I don't know. This year they might. They didn't last.
Is Winnipeg getting this year or next year for Andrew Ladd?
I thought it was this year.
I thought so too. All right, so then they're not again this year. I wasn't sure which year either. So yeah, last couple of years they're not picking in the first round. I mean, Nick Schmaltz is a heck of a trade chip if that's what they're going to do. But
he is.
But if they do that, then there isn't a whole lot left. I mean, then we're starting to get a little thin even for the Blackhawks.
Well, I mean, maybe it's time for Hartman to come up. Maybe they do.
I think it's time.
Maybe you move a Teravainen for a defenseman.
That would work.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't foresee if he's not trustworthy, if Quenneville doesn't have the trust in him to use him in key situations, he's young, he's got talent. Teams would want him. I mean, maybe that's a move that makes sense. I mean, I don't know whether they can hold on to Ladd if they could want to re-sign him. If they do, it probably would cost a ton.
I think his price came down actually with this play the last month of the season.
Yeah, I think so. They need to try and draft defense. I mean, I like guys like John Hayden. I like Ryan Hartman. I like Nick Schmaltz. Everybody I say that I'm going to like in Chicago are offensive players.
Right.
So either you need to do a swap of really good prospect guys who they think they can get one in there early, or they're going to have to start drafting defense and just do patchwork for the next couple of years and take their chances. That's the tough part about the cap is right now they're trying to keep that core together, and while they're keeping that core together, they're patching the rest.
Now, the one advantage that they have, now I don't know whether a guy like Kyle Vaughn is going to step up and be in the NHL in the next year or so, but the advantage that they have is they're a destination team.
Yeah.
Panarin went there because there's Kane and Taves and that core. They can get those college guys. They might be in the mix for Jimmy Vesey if he opens.
They're not.
But I'm just saying guys like that. I mean, if there are college free agents out there, Chicago, it's a contract and it's a roster spot and it's an entry level deal. They may be a destination for players in the KHL. I mean, I'm not going to say Radulov because apparently Radulov is going to go someplace else if he does sign in the NHL. But there are players out there who are NHL capable that may leave the KHL that they can get for a reasonable price. It didn't work with Viktor Tikhonov, but guys like that, they could go out and get workman-like depth players that can play with those guys. And they actually got a usable player, Richard Panik from Toronto. He played well in the last few games for the Hawks. So I don't think it's doom for them, but I think there's definitely a retooling that has to be done. So okay. The other game last night was Nashville-Anaheim. Much to X pleasure, the Nashville Predators won 3-1 and force a Game 7 on Wednesday. I truthfully have to say I did not watch a lot of this game. I was concentrating more on Chicago and St. Louis, but apparently Pekka Rinne played his best game of the series, made 26 saves. They got a goal from Ekholm, Weber, and James Neal. And now Anaheim is in the position where they don't like to be, at home for Game 7. They've lost 3 home Game 7s.
Wow.
To eliminate them in the last 3 years. So.
But here's the thing. I mean, the game was 2-1 for most of the game, right? That empty netter came in 1950. So forget about the 3-1. It obviously was a close game for the entire game. We've come down to dice roll territory, and these teams are almost even. They're almost identical. You could find 2 things you like about the one, and there are 2 other things you like about the other, and now we're like at this even point where in Game 7, to me, it's a complete dice roll. The interesting thing is that Anaheim played Fowler for 26 minutes. That's crazy, but they did, and Lindholm actually had 3 giveaways, which is bad. I mean, for him, at this point, he should be playing a little better. He's still a younger defenseman, but I don't expect those kinds of giveaways. Ryan Ellis, I've told you he's really emerging here, and he's really emerging here. So he was fantastic. Again, there's no question about that. And Rinne did finally step it up. So, I mean, you can't really fault Anaheim. Even I can't fault Boudreau for this. There's nothing you can do about that game. They've got another game, right? And
To me, the mindset of Nashville or the mindset of Anaheim was the same as St. Louis going into Chicago, where
Yep.
it's nice if we could end the series here, but we don't have to. We have the Game 7 at home. The only thing I'd be concerned about is Anaheim's propensity of losing Game 7s at home. They really have to come up big. I think they're the bigger, better, and deeper team of the two, but that doesn't mean anything because there have been teams that I think were favored to win series in this playoffs that are starting their summer early. So, Dan, what do you think of this series?
Well, it's a coin flip series and going into it, and a lot of the first round was a coin flip series. A lot of these could have gone either way, and not much separates these teams by that many points. And I thought last night was a character win for the Predators and their franchise. I think in the past, this is the game they let get away. This is the game where Rene isn't sharp or isn't perfect, and they can't find the scoring, but they did enough to force a Game 7. And I think you have to like their chances going into Game 7 now. That defense has been outstanding, and if Rene's going to play the way he played last night, they're going to be able to take more chances too. And I do like that because when the Panthers when they're the Predators. It's a cat, so I was close. When the Predators defensemen are activating and they're joining the rush and they're leading the offense, that it's dynamic, and it also takes pressure off of their forwards who, outside of a couple, aren't that dynamic as well. So
Weber got away with a few possible penalties, or at least.
Of course he did. Yeah, it's like we can complain about officiating, but there's no reason to because this time of year the NHL rulebook is about as thin as this piece of paper.
Okay, one thing I'm going to mention one thing, and then I want to mention that real quick, but. Paul Gaustad, everybody sort of scoffed at that contract and everything else, and I didn't because he's a face-off shark, and there's very few of them left in the league. He was
and you need it this time of year.
You do 64% on face-offs. Like if I'm in a Game 7 and I've got a big face-off in my own end, I'm putting out Paul Gaustad. That's a pretty good number. Here's the other thing about the officiating thing. I've heard so many people in the last couple of days, including the Islander game, and now you're here even to talk about that, saying, well, how could you expect a call in a big moment? Listen, to me, if there's an obvious penalty, I want to call big moment or not.
Right.
Yeah, but what in the track record of this league makes you think they'll make that decision?
And that's fair.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, look, last year, the Capitals publicly said they were trying to hurt the Islanders. They ended Wisnowski's career, and then they laughed about it, and the league did nothing. Letang didn't even get a penalty for throat slashing someone. So it's everywhere. There is a universal, the league doesn't want them to decide the game. They don't want the officials to decide the game. But by not calling penalties, they're deciding the game.
Well,
that was an absolute trip on Matt Martin, but that was also Jokinen was riding Hamannik's stick like Harry Potter in the first period from blue line to center ice, and there was no call. So look, bottom line is the officiating is bad or inconsistent over the course of the entire playoffs, and that comes from the league. That's a league problem.
Just one thing about Nashville, they should feel confident in the fact that they won 2 games in Anaheim at the beginning of the series, so they should feel confident that they can win the Game 7. And all the pressure, I know that they say the pressure is equal on both teams when it's a Game 7.
Pressure's on the Ducks.
Pressure's on the Ducks, especially after that first half and coming back and being arguably the best team with the best record in the second half of the season. Going down 2-0, winning the next 3. If they blow Game 7, first of all, you think that Ken Hitchcock saved his job with his win last night? If Anaheim loses, I say Bruce Boudreau probably gets fired within about a week.
Hey, if Hitchcock can't get along with Tarasenko, his job's not safe either unless they win the Cup.
He could win the Stanley Cup and not have a safe job now.
Yeah, he better see. You got to end that. You got to patch that up, and you cannot have your superstar not being happy with you.
I have a feeling the heir apparent in St. Louis is on the bench right now because isn't Kirk Muller one of their assistant coaches? I don't
know if he has enough experience yet.
I have no comment on Kirk Muller.
Okay, let's move on to the entertainment of the day. Dan Boyle doesn't like Larry Brooks apparently,
and Brett Zergalis either, and he wasn't even there. He's covering the Islanders.
Yes, in the season-ending press conferences, the veteran NHL defenseman who is an unrestricted free agent, the media scrum was there, and Larry Brooks of the New York Post, well-known columnist, was there, and I quote, "I don't want him here," said Dan Boyle. Brooks responded, "You know the feeling's mutual." "Nobody likes you," Boyle said. "Nobody respects you, just so you know." And it got worse from there because then he started dropping F-bombs.
Right.
So, Russ, I mean, okay, I can understand this from the point of view of the player. You're bashed over and over. And, I'm guilty because, Dan Boyle's a veteran guy. He's been a great NHL defenseman. He's a Stanley Cup winner. He was on an Olympic team. He's had a great career. The contract, we've said for a couple years, the contract was bad. That he couldn't play anymore, that he was basically a bottom-pairing guy, and he made a lot of mistakes.
With just a little bit of offense left.
With just a little bit of, he was still decent on the power play. But the problem the problem is that Brooks was just beating him over the head, saying that it was a mistake, I can understand the player getting pissed off and saying, you know what, screw you, I don't want to answer your questions.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to back Dan Boyle, but I'm going to say when there's that many negative articles, when you could find a lot of instances, look, the guy's still an NHL player. If the coach is playing him, then you're entitled to your opinion as a writer, but there's definitely a line you can cross. And it seems like in Dan Boyle's mind that line got crossed, right? And so when he knew he was on the way out, he was basically using his tongue as a machine gun, right? That was his way of just sort of his FU on the way out. And he didn't do it just to Brooks. He just did it loudest to Brooks. Apparently, Pat Leonard said a lot of it was meant for all of them. And so my basic feeling is this. When you sign a contract like that at the end of your career and you're in New York, expect criticism. You're not in Tampa. You're not in San Jose. Those are totally different markets. And so that's all I have to say. It's like he should have listened to his agent in the sense that, yes, I had this offer for you, Dan, and sort of thought to himself, all right, well, I'm not what I used to be. Do I really want to do this spotlight? Go ahead.
Who traded for his rights right before he signed with the Rangers? And who offered him a 3-year deal?
Yeah.
And who decided to go across the bridge? All I have to say to Dan Boyle is thank you. Thank you. Because if you signed with the Islanders, I wouldn't have that.
Right.
And I wouldn't have that. So, thank you, Dan Boyle. Good luck in your future.
Look, he was a terrific player. He was an all-star player for a lot of years.
Oh, absolutely.
When players sign these contracts, they have to know this could happen. Especially in a market like that.
But we know. See, this is the thing, and this is the thing I think is funny. And I wish I had $1 for every player who said, "Oh, I don't read the newspaper. I don't."
Liar. People watch this show.
Bull crap. Of course you do.
Plenty of players have talked to me about this show. What I've said on this show.
Phil Kessel called a reporter from the Toronto Star an idiot for criticizing him in columns. I'm sorry. You signed the 8-year, $64 million extension with the Leafs. You had to know that if you didn't play up to expectations and if the team didn't perform, you were going to take flack. So don't give me this crap about this guy's an idiot. He has a right to criticize you. Now, he doesn't have a right to be disrespectful. He doesn't have a right to get personal. But he does have a right to criticize. And that's where I think, columnists now, there's this thing, are they trolls? Are they, whatever? They have a job. But sometimes that job is pointing out the negative.
I think Dan Boyle is what he is at this point, and I think if you're following the team, you have to have some realistic goals for him. You do, because at best he's a 6. It's like he's not the reason why the Rangers lost to the Penguins. The deterioration of their top 3 is part of the reason.
Cap dollars are
right. I know.
Is it fair to say that Boyle would not have faced as much criticism if he had signed for $2 million rather than 4.5?
It's fair to say because they would have gotten another player and he would have just sat more.
Right.
Yeah, but if McDonough, Stahl, and Girardi were better, there would be Boyle would be a better foreman. He would be in his role. He would probably be in his proper role. You can't have a 38-year-old playing outside of your role.
Yeah, I mean, it did come out. McDonough's got a broken finger, so he's got to get that fixed. But here's the thing. Like, I even look at it and say, McDonough's got 2 years at 4.7. To me, that's untouchable. For what he gives you, he's 23 minutes a game, and everybody goes, Keith Yandel, Keith Yandel, Keith Yandel. But Keith Yandel, while he's better offensively, if you look at the list of giveaways, Keith Yandel is ranked like 13th or 17th, and McDonough's 30th. Now, granted, is it a big number? No, but McDonough plays more ice time. And McDonough ranks his Ranger career, he's .44 points a game. He's not supposed to be a big point guy, but Yandel's number for points a game isn't that much over him. And I know there's a lot of fans that would trade McDonough to keep Yandel, and I wouldn't do it because at the end of the day, you still have to play defense and have to hit people, and those are things that aren't really in Yandel's game. It's no offense to him. I would say, hey, Rangers, if you can keep him, you'll have to trade somebody else. But at the end of the day, that's where the trouble is, and that's where I think a lot of this comes from. If the defense were a little better, maybe Dan Boyle wouldn't even be under the microscope. But at the end of the day, I think you do have to have some respect for players and say, look, if his game's falling off, it's falling off. If you don't think he's good, you could write he's not good. If you think he's washed up, you could write he's washed up. But there is a line. That's all.
Talk about a recipe for being overpaid. With the market the way it is and the lack of defensemen, Yandel could get 6.5, 7.
He could. He probably won't. He probably won't. Yeah, I can't. Wow, who would?
I know, but
God, I hope the Bruins don't do that. I really don't.
They might. I mean, based on what Sweeney said in his postseason.
He's a $4.5 million defenseman.
He is.
You know,
but
I mean,
he'll get more.
What they may be looking at is the fact that Chara's got, I think, another year or maybe 2 at most, and then he'll drop off. You know, when he retires, unless he thinks he can keep going for a lesser amount. Seidenberg has got 1 or 2 years left. I'm not looking at the cap, but they may think that they can sign him for big money. But the thing is, he's not a big money defenseman. He's not a two-way defenseman. He's an offensive specialist. He's Sergei Gonchar. He's an American Sergei Gonchar.
He is. He is. And while he's
but I don't think he's as dynamic offensively as Gonchar was.
No, but I'm saying
but he's like an equivalent. Like, just to say he plays like that. He does play like that. And look, I think he's had a heck of a season, but at the end of the day, he had 1 point in the playoffs, too. Like 1 point in 5 games.
Yeah, I know. I had him in my fantasy pool.
Right.
Okay, but more transitioning from that, Russ, because we were talking about the Bruins and we were talking about their defense. Talking about like young kids and expectations of young players.
Yeah.
I know we talked about this. Tell me about the situation with like Brandon Carlo and.
Yeah, there are teams out there and markets and media people that they want to write articles and say, hey, maybe this kid's the answer, even if the kid is 19 or 20, and we're going to start seeing more of these articles, more of like, and they may not write it, but the underlying aspect of it to me is, well, it's worthless for this guy to go back to juniors as an overager because what could he possibly learn, And to me, that's the worst possible reason to put a guy in there. I get that in the cap world, we want to sort of get players in there sooner. But again, there's a process that they have to go through, especially on defense, which is the hardest position to play. And now you're asking to put in 19 and 20-year-old defensemen in the league when for every Aaron Ekblad, there's 5 or 6 of them that try and end up failing or having their career tail. Like, how's Derek Pouliot doing? I'm just, you don't want to do that to kids, especially if they need to get stronger. And Carlo, like, even if the Bruins were going to use him in a bottom 6, how many minutes is Brandon Carlo really going to get in a bottom 6? Where if he goes back to juniors, he's playing on the top pairing, he's playing power play, all those things. Maybe his offense even blossoms more than has already shown because it's starting to get better. But his role is probably like a number 4 in the NHL. So why am I going to play him in a number 6 role for limited minutes? It's not going to help him.
Well, I mean,
I think the year after you're drafted, I understand. Like, let's say you're drafted in 14, you go to juniors in 15, but the following year you should be able to go to the AHL. You really should. If 19-year-olds from Europe and 19-year-olds from if 19-year-olds from Europe and 19-year-olds in college leave college can play in the AHL, I think this is silly.
No,
I think it is. I mean, that would be the answer too, because then he would start off the next year in the AHL, and you'd look at him and say, all right, maybe half season we could bring him up.
But we know that rule is there to protect the CHL teams, to give them players. But the thing is, and I mentioned this to you, Russ. Jeff Merrick, who we both know, has said many a time, I don't know of a player who has gone back to junior and it hurt their careers.
No, it's true. I mean,
if you look at
I think guys can get bored though, and I think guys can develop some bad habits.
Well, I don't think they get as many bad habits as you think. I think they pout for a week and then the numbers rise. Look at Daniel Sprong. He still ended up having a great year. He was a little overmatched at the NHL level, but he was close. I give him credit. I saw what Pittsburgh saw in him, and he was close. but he wasn't there. And that's the problem is you have to know if a kid's close, you're better off sending him back.
Yeah, if you look at Max Domi, he went back for his 19-year with London, played wonderfully in the World Junior for Canada. The Sabres drafted Sam Reinhart second overall. They gave him the 9 games. He wasn't ready. He wasn't strong enough. He went back to the WHL, had a great year, played in the World Junior, came back this year and scored 20 goals. Yep. The Leafs are facing a similar situation next year with Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner is only 18 right now. I think his birthday is in May. Yep. He's going to be 19. He can't go to the Marlies, and it's either go back to junior or play for the Leafs. And
you want him to get bounced around the NHL, like Travis Konechny. I get why a lot of people in Philly would love to see him in the lineup, but he also had a grade 2 tear in his shoulder, which he's going to have to rehab over the summer. So now, after he does that, do you want him to start his pro career in the NHL and see if his strength is really NHL strength? Do you want to risk that? I wouldn't.
And Marner, Marner right now, London is up 2-0 over Erie. If they win that, they go to the OHL championship. They're probably going to the Memorial Cup, but you can't say whether. Definitely they do. But if they do, he's going to be playing until the middle or late May. Yep. It's going to give him 2 months in the off season to sort of build up his strength. Probably not enough to put the significant muscle and weight on, which means he won't be strong enough. I think he's going back to London next year. Yeah. Probably they move him from wing to center. And Dan, I think the Islanders should be given a lot of credit for their patience in terms of their development, because guys like Del Cole, Barzal, there was talk about Barzal possibly making the team out of training camp.
If they stunk this year, if they were still in rebuild mode, he would have made the team. He was probably one of the best players in training camp.
But Del Cole, even after his season was done in Kingston, they sent him to Bridgeport. They didn't call him up and have him be a black ace with the Islanders. So I was surprised at that.
I think they've learned their lesson, right, Dan? They did used to rush guys.
Yeah, they screwed up Bailey and they screwed up Niederreiter.
Yep.
That's another thing too, where that rule hurt them a little bit, because they had to send Niederreiter back to juniors and they wanted to send him to Bridgeport and they couldn't.
Right.
And I don't know if this probably can't be addressed until a new CBA, or if it's an agreement with the NHL and the AHL or whatever, or the CHL or whatever. But there should be a one-player exemption. A one-player exemption for, like, if the Leafs wanted to send Marner to the American Hockey League, they could.
I like that.
I think that's fair.
That's more than fair.
I think the problem is the American Hockey League, while it is still a developmental league,
yes,
and it's more of a developmental league than it was 15 years ago, they still want to sell tickets. And even though I think the young guys do sell a certain amount of tickets, there's enough fighting, and they want to keep a certain amount of veterans around that they might fight that.
Yeah, and see that there are always exceptions. William Nylander played as an 18-year-old because he played in the Swedish league and then came over.
And then the college loophole. There's the college. If you're not drafted in the CHL, you can go right there.
Right. Jeremy Bracco played 3 games for Boston College and then played for Kitchener this year. He could play for the Marlies next year because he played in the NCAA. So, yeah, there are loopholes here. So I think for the CHL, they should build in an exemption for these players who are too good for junior and need to the American Hockey League. Anyway, some news and notes here. Steven Stamkos skated for the Tampa Bay Lightning in a practice jersey. He skated in the fourth line with Brian Boyle. Excuse me.
So he had the yellow jersey on.
Well, no, they said red. They said red jersey. So I'm going
red
with
jersey.
Yeah, whatever.
Is it no contact though? Is that their no contact?
It might.
It is.
He's still on blood thinners.
Yeah.
But he's skating. So they did not say that there was any change in the timeline, but the timeline was 1 to 3 months, so it was pretty broad.
If they make the Stanley Cup, there'll be a change. I told you that. He's going to play.
Yeah. Dan, I don't think that Stamkos is going to be a factor in the series against the Islanders. How confident are you with the Islanders facing Tampa?
Pretty much the same as I was playing the Panthers. I thought that was a coin flip series. I don't think people gave the Islanders enough credit. The Panthers had a fantastic season.
Fair.
And but the bottom line is, it's like people were picking the Panthers in 5 games. It's like they won 2 more games than the Islanders.
Yeah.
They won 2 more games, so I think, and the Islanders actually have more points than Tampa this year, so in a better division. I think once again you have a coin flip series, and this is a different kind of. Tampa matches up with the Islanders. It's a different kind of skill set that they have to deal with. The Panthers were huge, decent speed, and they could match up with the Islanders' size. They could also counteract the Islanders' fourth line. The Lightning are a much faster team. They don't have that physicality in their bottom 6, so I think the Islanders' fourth line might make more of a difference in this series. And it's going to come down to goaltending. Bishop's had a fantastic year. Greiss is playing lights out right now, so I think it's going to be another close series. The way John Tavares is playing right now, I like the Islanders' chances.
Any update on Halak? Have you heard anything?
Halak started practicing today. There is no way he's going to play if Greiss is playing the way he's playing.
Right, but
because you just can't.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I'm thinking, because right now, okay.
He's not close though. He's not close. I would not expect him for the series. Pulock should be back by Game 3. They're thinking.
Okay.
Oh, I had heard something that he was out for longer than that, but
no, it was 1 to 2 weeks. They retroacted him when they put him on IR. They're thinking Game 3.
Okay. I think it is really close. I think the difference might be the goaltending. I think as well as Greiss has played, now he's going to have to face Bishop, who's been there the last couple of years.
Right.
Stanley Cup, Eastern Conference Finals, he's been there. So that's.
Islanders played them tough this year. I do like the way they match up, and I don't think the Tampa defense is as deep with Stralman out. So I think they can be exposed a little bit.
It's not, and I think that does keep it close. I think it's very close to a pick-em. I do. I don't remember what I picked Florida in, but I know I wasn't one of those 5 guys. I think I was 6 or 7.
I took a little heat last night on Twitter, or at least I had to explain myself with my comment of this is the year of the choker. Meaning that this is the year that the teams that have choked perennially have finally made
it's like their redemption. No, are you talking about the Sharks, Blues, and Capitals?
Yes.
Okay, so it's like Ryan Reynolds redeemed himself with Deadpool after the crap that was Green Lantern. Like in the nerd world, you can wipe the slate clean. He has redeemed himself. So this is the year of redemption. I think that's a better way of putting it. Okay. A year of playoff redemption. Although the Capitals aren't there yet, the Capitals have to make the finals. The Blues and the Sharks got some elephants off their back.
Yeah, well, and we're looking at it's going to be Preds or Ducks versus San Jose. We got Dallas and St. Louis. Islanders and Tampa.
If you're the league, you're looking at the cities that are left. If you're the league, you're probably just like this.
Yeah, well, yeah, but the series,
could you imagine a Tampa-Nashville finals?
Yeah, but the series that everybody is going to focus on now, and I heard some complaint that the Penguins and the Capitals shouldn't be meeting in the second round. Should be the conference final. No, this is
the Blues and Blackhawks just met. That is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. But
I'll tell you what, though, me as a media guy who covers the Stanley Cup, I'm looking at New York, Washington. I'm not saying I would root against Tampa, but I'm just saying New York and Washington are awfully close.
They are.
It's hopping that Amtrak.
Osella.
Yep. Tyler Seguin was not skating. Neither was Cody Eakin for the Dallas Stars.
It would be a loss if they don't have him. Eakin's a heck of a player.
Especially on top of losing Seguin. And Russ, it sounds like that Game 2 against Minnesota was like, let's test him out and see. Yeah.
It was a bad time to test him.
I agree. There was no reason for it.
You hold them out another couple weeks. I mean, you're up in the series 2-0. You hold them out a couple more weeks, and then you try. But you don't try the second game of the series. Now you don't know if he had a setback or if we don't know what specifically if he re-injured the Achilles. But if he did, he's out for the remainder of the season. And his not being there is one reason why I would favor St. Louis in the series against the Stars.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I got a little bit of news too. Something off the beaten path that came my way. Alex Berthold, he covers hockey in Germany, and you know what's funny? Germany's sort of closing in as becoming like a really good league, very competitive. Yeah. A lot of players are coming there, and now they're almost trying to steal coaches. Craig Berube is being interviewed for the Mannheim team, and the reason the Mannheim team has a lot of money is because SAP is their big sponsor.
Well, there you go.
So they're looking at Berube and they came to the States to interview him, so that's an interesting thing, and he's sort of deciding. And then also next on their list is Keith Acton. So now they're really, they're going for a level that's much bigger than that league used to be.
About 15 years ago, I had a friend who played in the minor leagues, played in college, played in the minor leagues, bounced around, did okay in the AHL, got a chance to go play in Munich, and he's been there ever since. He makes good money. He's played outstanding there, and he's like, I live in Munich. Why the hell would I want to come back and go play in Lowell?
Well, if you think about it, I mean, the Swedish league, the quality of the play is great. The Finnish league has improved dramatically. The KHL is pretty good, but I think that there are concerns about the instability of the Russian dollar, the economy there, the safety concerns, that some players who are not Russian probably would not want to go over there. Playing in the Swiss league, playing in the German league, playing in the Czech league, those are viable options for players.
I feel like we're mining, and by we I mean like the scouts out there, teams out there. I feel like they're mining the Swiss league really well now, and when I was at the under-18s, I was talking to the Swiss media there, and so I'm always interested in these leagues. But now, the German league is still we don't really get too many players out of the German league. That could be the next area in a couple of years where all of a sudden we're getting players from.
Those countries, Switzerland, Germany, Denmark, and Austria, just look at where their national teams were 10 years ago and look where they are now. All four of them are coming to the point where Czech and Slovak are kind of they're still above those teams, but the Czechs and Slovaks aren't producing NHL players like these other countries are.
Bryce is a German goaltender,
That's right. Yeah, Draisaitl.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's.
So it's starting to trickle through, and I think if they start getting NHL quality coaching there, that could be a game changer for them. Remember when the lockout happened, a lot of guys went there. Briere went there. A bunch of guys went there.
Well, and the funny thing is that you think that it's going to be tough for teams like Chicago to find players to fit into certain roles. Look at San Jose and Donskoy, who scored a big goal in the game, the eliminating game, the opening goal and the insurance goal against LA. He was a free agent.
Yep.
He played in the Finnish league, and he was a
nice young player.
Good that's what you have to do. You've got to find almost one of those a year now.
Yeah, that's where scouting is going to be so important for teams. Not only teams that are trying to rebuild, like Toronto, and they're scouring the KHL and the SHL for players, but teams that are looking to stay competitive, that they can get European players for pennies on the dollar compared to some free agents out there. That it's a way to go.
It's one of the reasons it kept the Rangers afloat all this time, because guys like Kevin Hayes, they had been able to get free agents because they have some big marquee names. They're a great city. It's a great rink.
Well, Zuccarello was
a free agent. He was the best free agent signing in the last 10 years, probably. Yeah.
The thing is, you can give these guys a 1 or 2 year deal. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't kill you.
Right. Yeah. So a little bit of news about Pavel Datsyuk. Kenny Holland is basically saying he's not giving up hope. I hope he'll be back, but it would be pretty naive for me to sit here and expect things to be the way they were year after year and think that Datsyuk was coming back. So he's tempering his expectations. Datsyuk doesn't want to make any decisions right now. He's going to go back to Russia for the World Championships. Russ, the expectation is that he's probably going to sign with a KHL team, but it doesn't sound like he's closing the door, or at least he's not closing the door while he's talking to the Detroit media. It may be.
Well, he didn't want to close the door on breakdown day. I saw the video, and he wasn't anxious to answer these questions either. And so generally when you're like that, I think he is in a little turmoil, but I think his mind's mostly made up. I do. I have no way of knowing that, but I just think it is, and I think he feels bad. And I think while he's talking to the Detroit media, he feels worse. And I think when he's away from that, he'll be able to make that clear decision and then say, hey, you know what? I feel bad, but this is what I've got to do.
Dan, do you think they'll be able to trade that contract? $7.5 million, no money.
Mark Savard's contract got traded, and Chris Pronger's contract got traded, and David Clarkson's contract got traded. I'm sure there's a deal that could be made there somewhere.
But I think they're going to have to give up maybe a second-round pick, maybe a good prospect like a Polk.
They might. Yeah, they might.
Yeah, I mean, there are enough teams that are looking to get to the cap floor. I know that Ottawa was floated as a possibility, maybe Arizona, but it would cost them an asset if they could. If Holland could somehow convince him to come back for one more year,
He has 1 year left, right?
1 year at 7.5.
Okay, so if I'm Arizona and I can get a decent player, I absolutely would take that contract.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, too. I think teams this offseason are going to be maneuvering for next year so they don't have to make the players that they don't want to make available for that, for the expansion draft.
Yes,
I think they're already going to start setting up for that and sort of saying, all right, look, if we're going to lose this guy anyhow, I don't want to give him to Las Vegas. We should get something for him. And I think there's going to be some of those guys moving, whether it's your third goalie in your system because you got too many and you can't protect them all, those kinds of things. I don't think there's going to be a ton of these guys out there. I think the guys that will be out there in this expansion draft will be the Marc-Andre Fleury's, the Rick Nashes, the guys whose contracts that you can't move and you wouldn't mind see go, and you have replacements for.
So you think Pittsburgh is going to trade Tristan Jarry because they can't protect both him and Matt Murray?
I don't think they'll trade Tristan Jarry. I think they'll not protect Marc-Andre Fleury. Jarry will have the one year in the minors next year.
I think he would have to be exposed based on the rule.
Wait, how many years? It's 2 years in the minors, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's in his
first.
But
didn't he play a little in the minors this year? He did.
This is his first year. Next year would be his second year. He would be exposed.
So maybe they trade him.
Yeah, so they might trade him then. Yeah, that's right. I didn't realize that it's the 2 year factor. You're right.
But you have to look who else is out there. If someone like Frederick Anderson is out there, he's probably going to go before.
Yeah, you know what? And honestly, they might not trade him because if they're going to have him and Fleury out there, are they really going to take Jarry over Fleury? Probably not.
No, not at all.
So I don't think they're going to trade him. I think they're going to hold on to all their goalies, but I think Fleury will be unprotected. I do.
Yeah,
and it makes sense. You have to protect Murray.
If I was Las Vegas, if I'm Don Maloney, and say Don Maloney is the Las Vegas GM, and I have a choice between a 33-year-old Marc-Andre Fleury making $5.5 million and a 22-year-old Tristan Jarry.
Oh, you can't think that way, Mike.
You can't think that way.
You got to sell tickets. Thank you, Russ.
Okay. Got to sell tickets
because Fleury will keep you competitive.
Well, I know one thing, and again, the rules for expansion have not been etched.
Yeah, we're guesstimating.
Right. Yeah, but you could take Fleury, then you could take Vasilevsky as your backup.
Right, but the preliminary. Well, no, actually, no. Tampa Bay did it smart. Bishop will be a UFA. They can.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so they can protect him. That is really smart.
If they wanted to re-sign Bishop, they could. But teams like New York with Nash, teams like Toronto with Joffrey Lupul, may keep these guys around for one simple reason. There's that 25% cap amount that the teams have to expose to expansion.
You expose Nash and Girardi, you're good to go there.
Right, exactly. And after the purge of Phaneuf and a few other players out of Toronto, Lupul is one of the highest paid players on the team, so you accomplish probably a quarter of the 25% that you have to expose by exposing him. It might mean that they put him in cellophane and protect him all year and do what they did with Stefan Robidas and tell him to enjoy the beaches of Venice, California, but he would be under contract and available. So
we're gonna see some maneuvering this summer because of it for sure. And Tampa definitely thought ahead. Like that was
really smart.
Because even if look, Vasilevsky can't do anything, and they could just tell Bishop, just wait till after the expansion draft, we'll give you your deal, and he'll wait.
Yeah.
Okay, it's NHL Draft Lottery Simulator time. We've got 4 more to go, after this one, 3 more to go until the actual day, which is Saturday, the 30th of April at 7 p.m.
I'm excited. I can't wait.
An extravaganza on Sportsnet in Canada. Okay.
Hockey Night in Canada. That's what it should be called.
I hate the show because it gets so dragged out, like the LeBron signing, but I'll watch it.
I'll watch it with the sound off. But here we go.
We have to watch it. It's must-watch TV.
I don't know about that.
And
Columbus.
The winner is the Columbus Blue Jackets.
That would be big for them.
They
Second
need that.
is the Winnipeg Jets. And third is the Edmonton Oilers.
Here's a question that nobody's talking about because they always talk about if the Oilers went first. If the Oilers are in the top 3, will people go ballistic?
No, I don't think so.
No,
Only if they get the top pick.
No,
I want to give you the mentality, okay?
Okay.
So the mentality is they can't possibly get the top pick again, or we're all going to get pissed off because they're stealing it away from other teams. But what if Pajärvi or Laine turns out to be better than Austin Matthews, and if they get the third pick, that turns out for them? Then
That's okay.
That's fate. That's fate. It's symbolic, right? It's the fact that they've had.
You know what? If they get number 3, let's say Columbus is 5, they should move back 2 picks and get a defenseman.
See, I wouldn't do it though.
Because Columbus will want to come up to get one defense, and the Oilers need a defenseman. Okay. Actually, the Oilers need 4 defensemen.
What are you going to give me to do that as Columbus?
Edmonton will get Ryan Murray, which they should have gotten a few years ago instead of.
Wait, you want me to move back?
Okay, so Columbus is 5, Edmonton is 3. Columbus will give you the 5th pick and one of their better prospects.
Well, I want somebody now. I don't want a better prospect.
Who? Sonny Milano.
You're not giving me Sonny Milano. Get the hell out of here.
He's from Long Island. He's from Long Island. He can't be that good.
I'll tell you what. If you want to give me him, done.
Yeah.
Done deal.
Well, you said you wanted a good deal. That's a good deal.
Dan,
That's a good deal. I wouldn't pass that up, but that trade won't be out there either.
Dan, did you?
You would pass up the first overall pick for Oliver Ekman-Larsson, no, but you would not pass up. Okay, you wouldn't.
I wouldn't. I would not pass up the first overall pick for Oliver Ekman-Larsson, but I'll take the 5th overall pick in Sonny Milano for the 3rd pick. I'll do that.
Did you just say that he's from Long Island, so he can't play?
Yeah.
That was a shot at Russ.
Yeah,
he'll eat those words.
Yes.
By the way,
actually, I think he's gonna be a very good player.
By the way, Adam Fox was pretty much the best defenseman in the World Juniors and under 18s for the U.S. team from Long Island. But I know it's a farce. I get it.
No, yeah. They just haven't produced. For all the hype you hear around here, they haven't produced NHL stars.
Okay, stop Larry Brooks and stop Dan Boyle. Hands between you.
There's plenty of good young players here. I'm just giving them.
He is. It's all good.
Thanks, guys. For Dan Petru, for Russ Cohen, this is Michael Agello. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.